Before we dive into this shocking courtroom story, I need you to do something important. If you love your mom, subscribe to this, and if you love your dad, smash that like button. Also, comment below and tell me your city and country, so we can see how far this story travels across the world. Now let's begin. The courtroom was packed. The air was heavy with tension, the kind you could almost reach out and grab. On one side sat lawyers in dark suits, shuffling papers nervously. On the other side, a poor black mother sat silently, her hands trembling as she tried to hold herself together. She was being accused of something she didn't do, something that could take her away from her son forever. The judge, a stern, older man with icy grey eyes, adjusted his glasses and prepared to deliver his words. Everyone in the room seemed ready for the verdict. Everyone except for a little black boy, no older than 9, sitting quietly in the front row. And then it happened. The boy stood up, his small voice trembling at first, but growing stronger as he spoke. He interrupted the entire courtroom. Every head turned. The bailiff froze. The lawyers gasped. And this little boy looked directly at the judge and said 2 words that made the judge's face drain of color. His hands shook. His eyes widened. And for the first time in his long career, the judge was speechless. But what could a little boy possibly say that would strike so much fear into the heart of a man who held all the power in that room? Stay with me, because the truth behind those words will leave you absolutely stunned. This wasn't just any boy. His name was Malik, and his life had been anything but easy. His mother, a hard-working single parent, spent years cleaning houses, waiting tables, doing everything she could to provide for him. Malik watched her struggle day and night, sometimes skipping meals so he could eat, sometimes working 2 jobs back to back. But despite her sacrifices, one fateful night changed everything. She had been accused of theft by a wealthy, arrogant man. The kind of man who thought a black woman's word meant nothing compared to his. The case was flimsy at best, but in a world full of bias, flimsy could be enough to destroy her life. And now, she was sitting in front of a judge who seemed ready to believe the worst about her. Malik had promised his mother he wouldn't say a word in court. He was just a child. He wasn't supposed to speak. But as he sat there, watching the judge prepare to condemn her, something inside him snapped. And that's when he stood up and spoke those 2 words. But before I tell you what he said, let me take you back to the night that set all of this in motion. The night was dark, the rain pelting against the cracked windows of their small apartment. Malik sat at the kitchen table, doing his homework by the dim light of a flickering lamp. His mother, Tamara, had just come home from a second job, exhausted, but still forcing a smile for her son. "Did you eat, baby?" she asked, pulling off her wet coat. Malik nodded, though the truth was, he hadn't. He had waited for her. She always tried to make sure he ate first, but he hated seeing her go hungry. She sat down, sighing, and rubbed her forehead. "One more shift tomorrow, Malik. Just one more. Then I'll have enough to pay rent." But what she didn't know was that her life was about to spiral into chaos. Because just a block away, a man was planning to make her his scapegoat. This man, Richard Langston, was a powerful businessman, wealthy beyond imagination, and arrogant enough to believe he could get away with anything. He had misplaced something valuable, a gold watch worth thousands, and instead of admitting his own carelessness, he pointed the finger at the easiest target. Tamara. She had cleaned his office that week. She was the perfect person to blame. Who would believe her over him? So the accusation was made. The police showed up. And just like that, Tamara was dragged into a nightmare. The next morning, Malik overheard everything. He saw his mother crying quietly, heard her whispering to her sister on the phone. "They think I stole it, Denise. They think I stole it. If I go to jail, who's going to take care of Malik?" That was the night Malik made himself a silent promise. If no one would defend his mother, then he would. If you believe no child should ever have to defend their parent against lies, hit that like button right now. And subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be told to the world. The case seemed stacked against her. Richard sat smugly in his expensive suit, his lawyer whispering in his ear. The judge's questions carried a tone of disbelief, as if he had already made up his mind. Tamara's public defender tried his best, but compared to Richard's legal team, he was outmatched. Malik clenched his fists under the table, his little heart pounding in his chest. And then it happened. The judge cleared his throat, preparing to deliver his words. Words that would send Tamara away. That's when Malik stood up. The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward the little boy. He looked directly at the judge and spoke 2 words that shattered the tension like glass. And those 2 words carried a secret that no one saw coming. Malik's small voice cut through the courtroom silence like a knife. 2 words. Just 2. Ask her. The judge froze. His gavel hovered in the air, his face drained of color. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Ask her? Ask who? Everyone turned, confused. The judge adjusted his glasses nervously, as if the boy had struck a hidden nerve. Son, the judge said slowly, sit down. This is not your place. But Malik didn't move. His tiny hands trembled, but his eyes burned with fire. No, you have to ask her. The room went silent again. And then, a door creaked at the back of the courtroom. An older woman in a plain grey dress stepped forward, her cane tapping the marble floor with every step. Her presence seemed to command the air itself. The judge's lips tightened. His knuckles turned white on the bench. Because this woman was his estranged sister. And Malik knew it. The woman, Eleanor, walked slowly to the witness stand. She had been silent for years, living away from the family, but Malik had found her. The boy had written her a letter, begging her to come, telling her only one thing. They're going to lock up my mom for something she didn't do. The judge's face turned pale because Eleanor held a truth that could destroy the case. Ask her, Malik repeated, louder this time. The judge hesitated. His courtroom, his rules. But the eyes of everyone there, the lawyers, the jury, the spectators, were on him. If he silenced his sister now, it would look like fear. So finally, through gritted teeth, he said, Fine. Speak. Eleanor leaned on her cane, looked straight at Richard, the arrogant businessman, and smiled bitterly. You should have been more careful, Richard, she said. Because I saw you that night. I saw you with the watch. You didn't lose it. You sold it, to cover your gambling debt. Gasps erupted. Richard's face twisted in rage. His lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. Eleanor had evidence, a signed slip, proof of the sale. And just like that, the entire courtroom shifted. The public defender grinned. Tamara burst into tears. Malik squeezed his mom's hand. And the judge? He sat back, pale as a ghost, because the truth had come out in his courtroom, and it was his own sister who delivered it. If you're watching right now, let me ask you, do you think Richard will accept defeat, or will he try to fight back? Stick around, because what he does next will leave you speechless. The courtroom was buzzing. Eleanor's words had struck like thunder, shaking Richard's entire case apart. But Richard wasn't the kind of man to bow his head and accept defeat. His face turned red, his veins pulsed on his neck, and he slammed his fist on the table. Lies. All lies. She's a bitter old woman trying to protect a criminal. He pointed a finger at Tamara, Malik's mom, his voice trembling with fury. Look at her. She's nothing. A cleaning lady who taught her boy to cause trouble. They'll say anything to get out of this. The judge raised his gavel, but Richard wasn't finished. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. I have new evidence, he snarled. The room fell silent again. His lawyer looked nervous, as if this wasn't part of their plan. Richard opened the folder and flashed photographs across the courtroom. Blurry, grainy images of Tamara near his office building. She was there the night the watch went missing. Richard barked. This proves it. The jury leaned forward, whispering. For a moment, it looked like Richard had regained control. Tamara covered her mouth in shock. That's not true. I was cleaning another building that night. But how could she prove it? And then, just as fear began to creep into her eyes again, Malik stood up. The boy looked at the photos, then looked at Richard. And with a steady, clear voice, he said, You're lying again. The entire courtroom turned to him. Malik walked forward, tiny footsteps echoing on the marble floor. He picked up one of the photographs from the table, studied it carefully, and smiled. This picture can't be from that night, Malik said softly. Because those posters in the background, they weren't put up until 2 weeks later. Gasps echoed. The public defender's jaw dropped. Even Eleanor raised her brows in astonishment. Malik, a boy no older than 10, had spotted what every adult missed. Richard's hands shook. He tried to snatch the photo back, but the judge ordered the bailiff to secure the evidence. Now the whispers turned against Richard. His credibility was crumbling faster than sand in a storm. The judge, pale and sweating, adjusted his glasses again. Mr. Richard, he said slowly, this court will not tolerate fabricated evidence. Richard's face contorted in desperation. He knew he was cornered, but instead of surrendering, he made a final mistake. He lunged toward Tamara. The bailiffs grabbed him instantly, dragging him back as he shouted curses and accusations. The jury gasped, and Malik clung to his mother's arm. Richard's empire, his name, his power, All of it crumbled in that single moment. And as the courtroom descended into chaos, Malik turned to his mother, his small voice breaking through the noise. "See, Mom? I told you. The truth always wins." The courtroom was in chaos. Bailiffs restrained Richard as he thrashed and shouted, his suit disheveled, his voice breaking. The jury's eyes were wide, some in shock, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The man who had walked in proud, smug, untouchable, was now being dragged out like a criminal. Judge Harrison slammed his gavel again, and again until the noise settled. His face was pale, his hands trembling, but his voice came out firm. "This court has seen enough," he said. "Richard, your behavior is beyond disgraceful. You not only presented fabricated evidence, but you attempted to intimidate this court. Justice will not be mocked in my courtroom." Richard shouted, "You can't do this to me. I'm Richard." But his words were drowned out as he was hauled away, still kicking and yelling. Silence fell. All eyes shifted back to Tamara and Malik. The young boy who had dared to stand up, who had spoken truth with more courage than men twice his age, was now staring at the judge with steady eyes. Judge Harrison leaned forward, his voice quieter now, almost heavy with guilt. "Tamara, Malik, this court owes you both an apology. You were treated unfairly. And young man," he paused, staring at Malik with something close to awe, "your bravery has reminded us all of what justice really means." The gavel came down one last time. "All charges are dismissed. This case is closed." The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in applause. People stood to their feet, clapping, cheering, even wiping away tears. Tamara broke down, hugging Malik tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You did it, baby," she whispered. "You saved us." Malik smiled through his own tears. "No, Mama, we did it together." Across the room, Eleanor watched quietly, a proud smile tugging at her lips. She had seen many cases in her long career, but this was one she'd never forget. Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing, microphones shoved out as they shouted questions. "Malik, how did you know? Tamara, what's next for you? Do you believe justice finally won today?" But Malik didn't answer the reporters. He just held his mother's hand tighter, as if telling the world, "This is all I need." And in that moment, the story was no longer about Richard and his lies. It was about a boy, a mother, and the truth that no amount of money or power could bury. Because sometimes, the smallest voice in the room carries the greatest weight. And that day, in that courtroom, it was the voice of a child. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. And don't forget, drop a comment below with your city and country, so we know how far the voice of truth is reaching.